Everyone have a wonderful day and continue to stay safe. Co-ed 1 is out.
Yeah, you stay safe as well, Co-ed 1. NCO standing by to the 200th hour.
Network control, CERN 1.
CERN 1, NCO reads you loud and clear. How do you read NCO?
Network control, this is CERN 1. Can you repeat your last, please?
CERN 1, this is NCO. I read you loud and clear. How do you read NCO?
I read the NCO loud and clear. My location is Tinton Avenue and 168th Street. My situation is normal and safe. Network control, clear. Network control to CERN 1.
Go ahead, someone.
You can inform those with radios that I'm the network control on CERN 1's the network control on the air. Over.
That's a good copy. We'll do right now. To all HIM members with radios, CERN 1 will be the NCO for all walkie radios. So you can also check with him on there. NCO, standing by to the 200th hour.
This is HEN 2 to the Harlem Emergency Network.
I read you loud and clear, HEN 2. How do you read NCO?
I read you 5 by 5. My location is Dykeman Street and 10th Avenue, and I'm safe.
Glad to hear that, brother. Glad to hear that. You take care of yourself. This is NCO, standing by to the 200th hour.
This is HEN 1 calling for a radio check. HEN 1 calling for a radio check. Over.
Good morning, HEN 1. NCO reads you loud and clear. How do you read NCO? HEN 1, this is NCO. I read you loud and clear. How do you read NCO? Over.
NCO, I read you loud and clear. My location is 133rd and 7th. Condition is normal. Over.
I apologize for that, HEN 1. Your phone kind of messed up your communicate. Can you repeat that? Over. Roger that, HEN 1. NCO standing by to the 200th hour.
HEN 1 standing by.
Unit 5, this is NCO. Unit 5, this is NCO. Please respond.
Go ahead, NCO.
Thank you for that correction. You're right. It is 9 o'clock. To all Harlem Emergency Network members, Tuesday night will be from 9 to 11.
Thank you so much, as network control. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Unit 5. Appreciate you keeping me on my toes. NCO, standing by to the 200th hour.
Network control, this is Vinoy 1, calling for a radio check. Over.
Vinoy 1, NCO reads you loud and clear. How do you read NCO?
I read you 5 by 5. I am in Fishkill, New York, and my situation is very safe. I will be holding on.
That's a copy, Vinoy 1. NCO, standing by to the 200th hour.
Rooster 29 in network control.
Rooster 29, network control reads you loud and clear. How do you read NCO? Rooster 29, NCO reads you loud and clear. How do you read NCO?
Network control, Rooster 29, read you loud and
clear. My location is 148th Street and 7th Avenue. Over.
Thank you for that, Rooster 29. And what is your status?
My status is fine. Rooster 29.
Thank you for that, Rooster 29. NCO standing by to the 10th hour. This is NCO for Harlem Emergency Information Network. Message of the day, weather. Today will be partly cloudy and a bit breezy at 65 degrees, and it might rain in the afternoon. Reminder, Tuesday night from 9 to 11 will be our weekly conference call. Wednesday night from 6 to 8 will be our regular class, and the lessons will be the T9A, the one we were supposed to study last week. NCO standing by to the 10th hour. I'll read you loud and clear. Hen 28, how do you read NCO?
NCO, I read you loud and clear. Over.
Hen 28, what is your status and location?
My status is normal. My location is 59th and 11th. 59th and West End Avenue. Over.
And can you tell me your status, Hen 28?
My status is normal and I am safe. Over.
Excellent. Did you get the message of the day?
Yes, I did hear the message of the day. Over.
Thank you for that, Hen 28. NCO standing by to the 10th hour.
And Hen 28 will be standing by until the 1000 hour. Have a great day. Over.
Well, likewise, that's a copy.
This is co-ed 1, the network control. Radio check. Over.
Good morning, co-ed 1. What is your status and location?
I read you loud and clear. How do you read co-ed 1? Over.
I apologize about that. I read you loud and clear.
Network control, my status is safe. My location
Sir 1, this is NCO. I read you loud and clear. How do you read NCO?
I read the NCO loud and clear. My location is Tinton Avenue and 168th Street. My situation is normal and safe. Network control clear. Network control Son 1.
Go ahead, someone.
You can inform those with radios that I'm the network control on Son 1, the network control on the ear. Over.
That's a good copy. We'll do right now. To all HEN members with radios, Sir 1 will be the NCO for all walkie radios. So you can also check with him on there. NCO standing by to the 10th hour.
This is Hen 2 to the Harlem Emergency Network.
I read you loud and clear, Hen 2. How do you read NCO?
I read you 5 by 5. My location is Dykeman Street and 10th Avenue, and I'm safe.
Glad to hear that, brother. Glad to hear that. You take care of yourself. This is NCO standing by to the 200th hour.
This is Hen 1 calling for a radio check. Hen 1 calling for a radio check. Over.
Good morning, Hen 1. NCO reads you loud and clear. How do you read NCO? Hen 1, this is NCO. I read you loud and clear. How do you read NCO? Over.
NCO, I read you loud and clear. My location is 133rd and 7th. Condition is normal. Over.
I apologize for that, Hen One. Your phone kind of messed up your communicate. Can you repeat that? Over. Roger that, Hen One. NCO standing by to the 1000th hour.
Hen One standing by.
Network control. This is Benoit 1 calling for a radio check. Over.
Network control. Benoit 1. This is network control. I read you loud and clear. How do you read NCO? Over.
Network control. I read you 5 by 5. I'm in Fishkill, New York, and I am safe. Over.
Thank you for that, Benoit 1. NCO standing by to the 1000th hour.
This is Benoit 1, and I am out. Have a great day, everybody.
Benoit 1, did you get the message of the day?
NCO, I was busy working on preparing for the webinar I'm about to go on. So what I have done is when we're finished today, I will play back the Zello, and I'll hear the message of the day then.
Hi, everybody. Sorry.
Once again, this is Benoit 1 out.
Roger that, Benoit 1. NCO standing by to the 1000th hour. Good morning, all hen members. Time now is 9 o'clock. That is 0900 hours. The message of the day, weather. Today will be partly cloudy and a bit breezy at 65 degrees. Might rain in the afternoon. Reminder, Tuesday night from 9 to 11 or 2100 to 2300 will be our weekly conference call. Wednesday night from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. will be our weekly class with lesson T9A. T as in Tom, 9, A as in Apple. NCO standing by to the 1000th hour. Roger that, Benoit 1. NCO standing by to the 1000th hour. Good morning, all hen members. Time now is 9 o'clock. That is 0900 hours. The message of the day, weather. Today will be partly cloudy and a bit breezy at 65 degrees. Might rain in the afternoon. Reminder, Tuesday night from 9 to 11 or 2100 to 2300 will be our weekly conference call. Wednesday night from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. will be our weekly class with lesson T9. NCO, 1000th hour.
The after action report, the WEBT after action report, May 4th, 2020. We are waiting for the participants to join in. In the meantime, we will listen to the radio checks as conducted by HEND. That's the Harlem Information and Emergency Network. Thank you.
Unit 5, this is NCO. Unit 5, this is NCO. Please respond.
Go ahead, NCO.
Thank you for that correction. You're right. It is 9 o'clock. To all Harlem Emergency Network members, Tuesday night will be from 9 to 11.
Thank you so much, as network control. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Unit 5. Appreciate you keeping me on my toes. NCO, standing by to the 1000th hour.
Network control, this is Vinoy 1, calling for a radio check, over.
Vinoy 1, NCO reads you loud and clear. How do you read NCO?
I read you 5x5. I am in Fishkill, New York, and my situation is very safe. I will be holding up.
That's a copy, Vinoy 1. NCO, standing by to the 1000th hour.
Rooster 29 in network control.
Rooster 29, network control reads you loud and clear. How do you read NCO? Rooster 29, NCO reads you loud and clear. How do you read NCO?
Network control, Rooster 29, read you loud and clear. My location is 148th Street and 7th Avenue.
Thank you for that, Rooster 29. And what is your status?
My status is fine. Rooster 29.
Thank you for that, Rooster 29. NCO, standing by to the 1000th hour. This is NCO for Harlem Emergency Information Network. Message of the day, weather. Today will be partly cloudy and a bit breezy at 65 degrees. And it might rain in the afternoon. Reminder, Tuesday night from 9 to 11 will be our weekly conference call. Wednesday night from 6 to 8 will be our regular class. And the lessons will be the T9A, the one we were supposed to study last week. NCO, standing by to the 1000th hour. I'll read you loud and clear, Hen 28. How do you read NCO?
NCO, I read you loud and clear. Over.
Hen 28, what is your status and location?
My status is normal. My location is 59th and 11th. 59th and West End Avenue. Over.
And can you tell me your status, Hen 28?
My status is normal and I am safe. Over.
Excellent. Did you get the message of the day?
Yes, I did hear the message of the day. Over.
Thank you for that, Hen 28. NCO, standing by to the 1000th hour.
And Hen 28 will be standing by until the 1000 hour. Have a great day. Over.
Well, likewise, that's a copy.
This is Co-Ed 1, the network control. Radio check. Over.
Good morning, Co-Ed 1. What is your status and location?
I read you loud and clear. How do you read Co-Ed 1? Over.
I apologize about that. I read you loud and clear.
Network control, my status is safe. My location is 109th Street and First Avenue, and the situation is normal. Over.
Roger that, Coad 1. I appreciate that. NCO, standing by to the 10th hour.
That's a copy. Everyone have a wonderful day and continue to stay safe. Coad 1 is out.
Hey, you stay safe as well, Coad 1. NCO, standing by to the 10th hour.
Network control, CERN 1.
CERN 1, NCO, read you loud and clear. How do you read NCO?
Network control, this is CERN 1. Can you repeat your last, please?
CERN 1, this is NCO. I read you loud and clear. How do you read NCO?
I read NCO loud and clear. My location is Tinton Avenue and 168th Street. My situation is normal and safe. Network control, clear. Network control to from CERN 1.
Go ahead, CERN 1.
You can inform those with radios that I'm the network control on CERN 1's the network control on the air. Over.
That's a good copy. We'll do right now. To all HEM members with radios, CERN 1 will be the NCO for all walkie radios. So you can also check with him on there. NCO, standing by to the 10th hour.
This is HEN 2 to the Harlem Emergency Network.
I read you loud and clear, HEN 2. How do you read NCO?
I read you 5 by 5. My location is Dykeman Street and 10th Avenue, and I'm safe.
Glad to hear that, brother. Glad to hear that. You take care of yourself. This is NCO, standing by to the 200th hour.
This is HEN 1 calling for a radio check. HEN 1 calling for a radio check. Over.
Good morning, HEN 1. NCO reads you loud and clear. How do you read NCO? HEN 1, this is NCO. I read you loud and clear. How do you read NCO? Over.
NCO, I read you loud and clear. My location is 133rd and 7th. Condition is normal. Over.
I apologize for that, HEN 1. Your phone kind of messed up your communique. Can you repeat that? Over. Roger that, HEN 1. NCO standing by to the 10th hour.
HEN 1 standing by.
Network control. This is Benoit 1 calling for a radio check. Over.
Network control. Benoit 1. This is network control. I read you loud and clear. How do you read NCO? Over.
Network control. I read you 5 by 5. I'm in Fishkill, New York, and I am safe. Over.
Thank you for that, Benoit 1. NCO, standing by to the 10th hour.
This is Benoit 1, and I am out. Have a great day, everybody.
Benoit 1, did you get the message of the day?
NCO, I was busy working on preparing for the webinar I'm about to go on. So what I have done is when we're finished today, I will play back the Zello, and I'll hear the message of the day then.
Hi, everybody. Sorry.
Once again, this is Benoit 1 out.
Roger that, Benoit 1. NCO standing by to the 10th hour. Good morning, all HEN members. Time now is 9 o'clock. That is 0900 hours. The message of the day, weather. Today will be partly cloudy and a bit breezy at 65 degrees. Might rain in the afternoon. Reminder, Tuesday night from 9 to 11 or 2100 to 2300 will be our weekly conference call. Wednesday night from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. will be our weekly class with lesson T9A. T as in Tom, 9, A as in Apple. NCO standing by to the 10th hour.
Control, this is BX Hit 51 calling in for a radio check over.
Good morning, BX Jawhead. NCO reads you loud and clear. How do you read NCO?
NCO, I read you loud and clear. My location is Bronx, Fordham area. Situation is stable. All is well at this time.
Thank you for that report, BX Jawhead. Did you get the message of the day?
Negative. I'll when you get an opportunity, can you let me know? Over.
I will be repeating the message of the day in about 12 minutes.
Roger that. This is BX Hit standing by for the message of the day. Over.
Roger that. NCO standing by to the 10th hour.
You're listening to the Harlem Emergency Network, Harlem's Information and Emergency Network, and their weekly radio check over the radios. And you're hearing the various radio operators calling in for a radio check. We are monitoring the radio network as part of our after action report here at the Stream University Project. We'd just like to add that we're thankful that everyone's safe and that they're providing the kinds of services in these radio checks that people need. And I'd just like to report that we are now over 61,000 deaths in the last 3 months with the COVID. Over 61,000 deaths with the COVID as of this morning. And remember this, you just oppose that with the stock market, which has had its greatest month in the last 33 years. It's doing great. And meanwhile, 30 million people have lost their jobs over the last 6 weeks, along with 60,000 people dying from COVID. So it's pretty clear that the stock market and the job market are not connected. So stay tuned for more radio checks by the wonderful people at the Harlem Emergency Network and their many members. Hold on. Bob, how you doing, Bob? The head member of one of the head guys at what's the name is checking in. Let's just get that straight. Good morning, Bob. How are you? How you doing today, Bob? Okay, Bob's on the line. We haven't heard him yet. Bob, can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Bob. Good to hear from you, man.
You
We're I'm doing quite well, man. You know, given the fact that, you know, the stock market has had its greatest month in 33 years. And at the same time, 30 million people have lost their jobs in 6 weeks, along with 60,000 deaths at the same time. So I'm seeing that the two things are not probably connected.
Yeah, that's a lot to process.
Sure is.
On a Monday
but at least we have a
morning,
beautiful
man.
day. yes, on a Monday morning. It is a lot to process on a Monday morning. I was staggered by that, about those figures. I was staggered by that. Even though we've had a robust, just as an aside, we've had a robust call-in for radio checks this morning. Quite an array of the HEN members have checked in. So that's been going smooth. That's been going quite smoothly. I'm impressed with that. that we've been able to have that. And of course, the weather looks mighty clear, as we see the camera on 125th Street Plaza, even though it's not that's not as robust as we once thought it would be. But
So is it
be
just
that
you
as
and
it
me
may.
right now?
It's just you and I right now. I know that Wan is holding down the NCO on the Walkie Network, and Voight Benoit 2 is holding down the network over the Zell network. So we've gotten a pretty good, robust command activity.
That's good.
And I think Stu today I think Stu goes with his sister somewhere today.
Oh,
If
okay.
I'm not mistaken.
Stu's taking a vacation day. What?
No.
I'm
I
kidding.
think he's taking his sister to the doctor.
I'm kidding.
Yeah,
I'm
and
kidding.
no
You
one's
know I'm
allowed to.
kidding.
And
But
Bob,
you
no
know,
one's allowed to take a vacation.
right? Exactly.
No one. I think we're on vacation already. I'm not
We're
sure.
on quarantation.
Quarantation. I like that. Very good.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
So, Bob, let me ask you a quick question.
Yes.
What has been your observations over the last week since that you are one of
Well,
a great
before I give my observations, can I kind of do a little bit of a public service announcement?
Please.
Okay.
Please.
So this public service announcement goes like this. So spring is here, the sun is shining, the birds are singing, and everyone in New York has one question on their mind. Is it safe to go outside? Remember that movie, The Marathon Man? Is it safe? Yes, it's safe. Is it safe?
Yes, I do
No, it's
remember
not
that movie.
safe.
Dustin Hoffman.
Right, exactly. So I wanted to give a couple of pointers for people who are trying to make this decision. So there's really kind of 5 points. The first one is know yourself. So whatever everybody else is doing, you got to look at your age and your health profile. And if you are in the category, if you're over 60, if you've got any kind of chronic illnesses or autoimmune deficiencies, you should probably take a little bit more care than everybody else. So even though everybody else is running out there, you want to think a little bit more about it. So the first thing is to know yourself, know your own health profile. The second thing is to know your area, which is that everybody's going to be talking about everything that's going on in the city, and we're going to see pictures of people hanging out in Central Park and all that. That's all well and good. Central Park area didn't get hit by the virus as hard as some of our areas did. So one of the things that anyone can do is to basically know your area, find out what's actually going on in your own zip code. And I want to show people really quickly what to do, how to do that. So if you don't mind, I'm going to jump on a little bit of screen sharing here.
Go ahead.
So this page is the COVID-19 information page on nyc.gov. It's easy to get to. You just put nyc.gov/COVID-19 and this page will come up. And what you want to do is scroll down this page to where it says COVID-19 data. I think I might have missed it. There it is, COVID-19 data. And when you click on the COVID-19 data page, there's a lot of information, but the thing you want to do is scroll down to the bottom where they actually have the zip code maps. Now, while along the way, you can read all the stuff about rates by borough, rates by age, all this stuff, rates by sex. But the most important thing you want to do is click where it says COVID-19 cases by zip code. Now, I've already got that clicked out, so I'm going to show what this map looks like. So this is a map of all of the zip codes, and the dark purple and the lighter purple indicates areas
Wow.
where the COVID has hit the hardest. And so,
Wow.
as you can see from this map, you know,
Looking
Harlem
at
got hit hard. We have a lot of light purple and one particular dark purple, which is 1029, which is East Harlem.
yeah.
Some of the areas along the river, like Riverton houses, those are in a light blue. That means it's not as bad. Um, all of the Bronx virtually is purple. So Bronx is in bad shape. Um, so,
Wow.
I show these to people so they can, I want to see if I can get this a little bit better. So the point is that if you're making a decision on, am I going out now, you want to know the zip code you're in, and you also want to know the zip code you're going to, what's going on. And if your zip code is still purple of any kind, then it makes sense for you to continue to use precautions if you have to go out, or don't start going out just yet. So what we said so far is know yourself. The second thing we said, know your area. And so, we have a couple of those maps on COVID, the COVID data page. And the reason why I wanted to show people where the page was is because they update this information every day. So it's fresh information. This map was updated as of yesterday. If you go in tomorrow, the map will be updated as of tomorrow. Now, these areas are probably not going to change much from day to day, but it's important for us to get the freshest information.
The message of the day.
I'll take a break for the message of the day.
Cloudy and a bit breezy at 65 degrees. Change to rain in the afternoon. From 9 Tuesday night, from 9 to 11, will be our weekly conference call. Wednesday night, from 6 to 8, will be our weekly classes. Wednesday's lesson will be last week's lesson, which is lesson T as in Tom, 9, E as in Apple. This is NCO, standing by to the town hour.
Okay, Bob. So,
Right.
hey,
So,
Bob, just as an aside, Bob, just a
yes.
quick aside.
Yes.
At the end of the after action report, I play all of the radio checks in entirety in case anyone missed.
Oh, great. Okay, so I said know yourself. I said know your area. The third thing is watch the numbers. Now, when I say watch the numbers, I mean the citywide numbers, and that's one of the reasons why we go to this data page. Now, the news hasn't talked about this much, but New York City came up with these public health milestones, and I'm going to read this what it says. New York City is closely monitoring key public health signs to determine when certain social physical distancing restrictions will be lifted for people who are not at high risk for serious complications of COVID-19. The timing of when to remove or reinstate social distancing and other policies to slow the spread of COVID will depend in part on trends in hospital admissions, critical care capacity, and positive test rates. Now, the reason why I want to bring this to people's attention is because this is basically what the city is looking at to say before we say everything is all good. We want to look at certain trends and see where we are. So the first trend is hospitalizations. And you see this chart here, daily number of people admitted to New York City hospitals for COVID-19 like illness. And so what they're basically saying is they'd like to see, when they set these standards, they wanted to see at least 10 consecutive days where the number of people admitted to New York City hospitals for anything that looked like COVID-19 is less than 200. So
So
according to this
that's now,
chart,
right, Bob?
yes, we're there. This chart shows that we're below that number for that particular metric. So that's a good sign. We've gone
Okay.
10 days where it's been below 200. Let's see, I messed. Okay, there we go. So that's a good thing. At least one of the indicators we are already um, below what they're looking at, and we've then done for 10 days. The 10 days obviously is important because we all have to remember it takes us 10 days to find out if COVID's really hit an area or not. So having a 10-day period where it's below this number, and to give it perspective, when at the peak, which was around, I would say, April 6th through April 12th, they were showing like 1,200, 1,500 a day to hospitals. So for us to be below 200 a day for a 10-day period is definitely a good sign that, we're on the downside of it. Now, the second milestone was critical care. And this one, we're not quite there yet. And so what they're looking for here is they want 10 consecutive days when the number of people in critical care at New York City Health and Hospitals is less
Okay.
than 375. We're not
We're not there.
quite, yeah, we're not
We
quite there yet. But it's been
645, right?
declining, but not as sharply. And so you see, we're
No,
we're
you're
we're,
right.
we're we're getting there, but we're not there. You know.
Yeah, we're not
So
there. Nowhere near yet.
but it's still going down. But it's important that we look
Oh,
at these numbers because when you look at the numbers, we don't have to worry about the media spin on it. The numbers are the numbers, and I believe whoever is collecting these numbers, they're not fudging the numbers. They just collect the numbers and put them up there. Now we always have to look at how are the numbers counted, but whatever they're doing is consistent. So it gives us a baseline to say, okay, it's going down, and we also want to watch the numbers because they might go up again, with people starting to come out again. The third metric was testing. And
hey
so,
Bob, before you
yes,
go, just a point of, it says right here that that all of these numbers all come from health and hospital locations and not alternative locations like the Comfort or Javits
right.
Center stuff. Just in the
That
private center.
and that's something that I think certainly needs to be looked at. And I don't know if those numbers are available. I'm not sure if it skews it in any way. All of this stuff is subject to scrutiny and review. But what I want
Mhm.
us to be aware about is that this is at least a baseline that we can look at and make our own judgment and interpretation about where things are. And I feel like this is just much better than paying attention to what comes out in the newspapers, because you know yesterday I saw a whole bunch of pictures of people hanging out in Central Park and everything like that. But when I can go and look at the map and see, well, Central Park area, I can see where they would be coming out because they haven't been affected the way our community is. So, that's why we broke it out the way we did. First, know yourself, then know your own specific area. Then let's watch the city numbers. So that gives us a general sense of what's going on. So those are three things, three pieces of information I wanted people to be able to utilize. And just the final, I'll just go through this testing real quick. So there were two metrics on the testing. Again, they want to see a 10 consecutive days, and they're measuring it two ways. One is testing at public laboratories. They want it to be 30% or less are being are testing positive. That's the green jagged line, and you can see that has been all over the place. So it definitely has not been 10 consecutive days. You can see it touched the line and it went up, and then it came down and went up and then down again. And then the second one is overall testing citywide. They want that to be, what is it? is it 10%, 15%, and we've inched toward it, but we haven't quite gone below that line. So the testing metric and the critical care metric, we have not yet hit the 10-day period where, you know, by the health department standards, we should be relaxing. So that is a good indicator of overall, you know, where things are in the city, that we should still be taking some care. Now, going back to the initial data page, you know, the overall trends actually has been pretty good. You know, these are the daily counts, you know, and so you can see this is cases, and you know, you can see these high points. This was like around early April, and then you can see the number of cases have been going down. We can see hospitalizations, you know, again, you see that curve where we've been going on a downward slope. And then finally, to me, the most important one has been deaths. And as you can see, we peaked out around April 5th and April 6th. It looks like was April 7th was the high point, but it's been a steady decline in deaths, you know, since then. So the good news, obviously, is that the numbers are very, very clear that we are past it, and they're still sloping down. But by the city's own standards, we're not quite there yet. And I think we all want to keep an eye on these numbers, because the biggest risk we have now is that now people are starting to go out. The weather almost demands you to go out. And truth be told, there are good reasons to get out now, and one of them, which, and we've talked about it, is to get your sun, get your vitamin D. So it is healthier to be outside, but we want to remind people two things. Number one, keep your practices tight. You still, you know, if you're going to go out, you still want to keep your social distancing. You still want to keep your mask and maybe gloves, and you still want to wash your hands often coming in and out. I think it's important for people to keep protocols of entering and leaving their house, particularly when you're returning to your house. Thorough washing hands, thorough practices about handling your masks. It's not a bad idea if you're going to go out when you first come in, take everything off, take a hot shower up everything, put your clothes, you know, separate them, and continue to use these good practices, especially if you are living in one of those areas where you got a purple blotch over your zip code. It means you are facing a lot more, you know, risk of the virus than other people who are just like skipping through the park merrily saying ah ha ha. So use common sense, continue these practices. We remind people to continue to do things to tune your immune system. Take your vitamin C, your vitamin D, eat fresh food, zinc as well. So whatever practices you've been doing, a lot of them has been working, because if you're listening to this, then you're still here to hear the tale. So don't slack off just because the weather is warm and it's nice outside. We've seen what's happening down south, where people decide, okay, you know, we're just going to reopen the economy, and the next thing you know, the COVID rates are jumping in all those states. They're jumping in Texas. They're jumping in Georgia. You know, they're dumping in South Dakota. All the states where the governors were idiots and decided to reopen without looking at some standards like these. You know, we're seeing higher rates of COVID. So while New York's numbers are going down, and obviously we took by far the worst hit of the country, but our numbers are going down, everybody else's is going up because they're acting like it's just a hoax. So we want to use our higher level of common sense. And the final thing I say to people is to stay ready. And by that, I mean, All right, so we just went through a pandemic. Most of us, it's our first pandemic. Um, we learned a lot of things about what to do, and just because it's opening up, keep keep a supply of masks, keep the sanitizer, stay ready. A lot of people, they're giving out masks, or masks are easier to find. Get more masks, keep some on supply, because this COVID virus could reinfect an area. It could be fine for the city, but it could come in and reinfect an area. You want to stay prepared for this thing, because I don't think we can just think, well, COVID just came, had a party for a month, and it's just leaving the city never to be seen again. It's COVID can hang around for a while, and most likely, if it's going to hang around, it's going to hang around in our community where it hit hardest. So we have to keep a state of readiness in mind and in practices. And I think that that will do us, we just got to use the common sense that we got from our moms and our grandmoms and our aunties and all those people who, all the stuff that we we learned early in life. When we go back and think about it, oh yeah, they told us they did tell us to wash our hands, they did tell us to take our vitamins, they told us everything. We should have listened. Well, now we can listen. So that's my PSA from Harlem Emergency Network. And good morning, Stu, I see you there.
Good morning, Bob. Good morning, Doug. Good morning to our HEN WBT family.
Yeah, I'm gonna release the screen here so we can see everybody's smiling face.
Yeah, Bob, I just wanted to echo something that you just said at the end of your report, and that is, I don't have the hard date. I'm going to look for our next report, but I have heard my wife is looking at the data closer than I am, but here in Westchester and in New Rochelle, where I reside, the numbers have gone up.
Oh yeah, that's disturbing.
And of course, we are right next to the Bronx, which is an extreme hotspot.
Right.
So I just wanted to echo the precaution that you're raising, that we're not over this thing yet.
Mm-hmm.
And, in particular areas, it's still high.
Mm-hmm.
And we got the winter flu season coming in 4 or 5 months. So we really have to be careful. I was out this morning. I had to drive up to White Plains, and there's a lot more traffic on the road. I make this drive every Monday morning, and there's a lot more traffic on the road, and a lot more people in the street. Granted, I'm in the quote-unquote suburbs, but still, to me, it looked like a good 30-40% increase over just a couple of days ago. And I guess I attribute that to the weather, as you said.
Yeah.
But I'm a little concerned that folks are kind of like not being as careful, not being as cautious, and that very well could be another flare-up.
Right. And that's why I wanted to put that together. I'm going to try to organize that in a little bit more, maybe try to do a PSA on it. But I'm going to just to reiterate the 5 points I said. Is it safe to go outside? First thing is know yourself. What is your age and health profile? Second thing is know your area, know what's going on in your zip code. You can find the zip code map on nyc.gov/COVID-19, and you can look for yourself and you can check every day. But if you're in a purple area, take higher precautions. The third was to watch the numbers from the city. And that's why I went through those 3 public health milestones, because that's what the city is looking at. And I think that makes perfect sense. And in watching those numbers, it gives a much better overall picture. And to reiterate, out of the 3 milestones, we've reached 1, but we haven't reached 2. So it says that we're not quite out of the woods. The good news is that all the overall trends have gone by, but we've got to look out for reinfections, and reinfections may not happen citywide. That can happen block-wide, which is why we started out knowing what's going on in our zip code first. So we've got to keep our practices up. We got to keep our immune system up. We got to stay ready. And I think that those are the things that people need to think about before deciding. We've all got to go out sometime. We got to get, re-up on food. mental health break. And as I said, it's a very good idea during the day to get out and try to get sun. You still want to keep social distancing, but getting some sun, getting some direct vitamin D is going to help your overall immune system. Not to mention your just mental health, because let's face it, part of people coming out now is a mental health thing. After being in the house for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, you got some people who are on the verge of suicide or homicide. So we understand why people want to do it. We just want to make sure that people in our neighborhoods use judgment and common sense. If you're in a risk area, risk profile, you gotta think about it a lot more than anybody else does. So I think that if we just kind of take that type of approach, we can all individually judge what makes sense for us. And I think people should not let people cajole you or bully you into going out if you're not ready. And at the same point in time, some of us have to get out there for certain reasons. We might need to get out there for economic reasons. We might need to get out there to get supplies. And so the whole thing is that whatever decisions you have to make about whether to go out or stay in, you still want to keep your protocols up. You still want to practice safe practices and make sure that that's happening on a family basis around you, and share that information. But let's be clear, we are not out of the woods yet, and so let's not fall victim to the mass hysteria that we're seeing in other parts of the country, where they're running out and they're screaming about, you stole my right to go to the mall and get a haircut. And those things, they kind of lose their luster, if you're hospitalized. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay. I'm gonna take a quick time out here to do my radio check. I haven't checked in yet with the network.
All right.
Bob, I think it would be a good idea if you showed that map with the zip codes again, because I thought that was extremely informative.
Okay.
And very visual. People could see what's up.
Okay.
While he's talking.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yep. All right. So this again is the data page, but I'm going to slip to the zip code map right now. Right. And so, yeah, so we can see, you can see the Bronx is nothing but a sea of purple. There are only a handful of zip codes that are not either regular purple or deep purple, so, and as Stu said, the Bronx is bordering on, Mount Vernon and New Rochelle. And so it's not far of a jump at all, and COVID does not respect political borders at all.
Well, I noticed that the zip code 10029, that is where we have our other radio station exactly in that zip code.
Yes.
And the people over there were highly concerned that they were not aware of it, and that it was not readily reported that they were in one of the hottest zip codes of them all. And I thought your idea of showing this is actually beneficial to almost everyone, because
right.
There's nothing like a visual.
Absolutely is. Carol Johnson, who is our incident commander for Harlem Emergency Network, also a part of the East Harlem COAD. So she and that organization have been spreading the word there. But still, everybody doesn't hear everything. That's why we try to get this information out. And I thought this information is important for people to see, because you can see visually exactly where you are. I'm actually fortunate. I'm in a blue area, which is 10030. And they're only.
But here's the funny part, Bob.
Yeah.
Look at 10029, and right next to it at 10026, they're in they're in a lighter area.
Right, and that's
so they're bordered by. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. Yes. And the other reason why I encourage people to look at these maps, because they change over time. That's why I went into showing people how to find it, because every day it's a fresh map. And even like if you Google the map, you might not get today's map. I tried it just to see, and what came up on Google was the map was like 3 weeks old, and so some of the zip codes that you look at, if you got the old Google, they're not what they are now, so you would get misinformation. So it's really important for people to go to nyc.gov/COVID-19, the COVID data page, and get the fresh information. It's updated daily. And so, we always want to look at the latest numbers, and especially with the public health milestones, because that's, if we see an uptick in numbers, we'll see it first in those numbers, since they're collated daily. And that's important. And that's why, also we have to think about these 10-day time horizons. And so if we're already looking at the New York City numbers, and 2 out of the 3 milestones, we haven't hit a 10-day mark, that means we're at least 10 days away, maybe 20 days away from the city saying everything is fully safe. And so that's an important kind of, idea on how we should be looking at this. That right now we're in early May, but it's going to take at least another 15, 20 days before, if the trends continue, that we hit all 3 markers on the city. And then, but if we watch those numbers, we might see an uptick, and which would tell us, okay, we need to pull back a little bit. And so we can look at these numbers, and we don't need to wait for de Blasio or Cuomo to come out and tell us. We can use our own common sense on looking at these numbers and not have to worry about, well, did the New York Times say it? Did the New York Post say it? Did Daily News or New York One? Well, let's just look at these numbers for ourselves and try to know what's also going on in our community. And that's the best way to make a decision. And then it doesn't matter what other people are saying, because other people can't help you if you get it. What are they going to say? Oops, my bad. I was wrong. Sorry.
I thought the most informative, the two from this map, this slide that you showed here with the zip codes, and I thought the one where you showed the number of deaths and the decline over time. I thought those were the two.
Right, those are important. Going back to this slide, you can we can see, I got a lot of, I felt a lot better about seeing this, because at least you can see, all right, this is definitely was the peak here, and this, we can look at these numbers and figure out, where it was the worst, and it correlates with our own experiences. During those days where it's the worst, that's when I get the phone call in the morning saying, so-and-so had died. So it correlates with our own experiences, but it also can show us, all right, at least we're not where we were a month ago. A month ago, literally, we were at the peak. We're a month out, we're going down. That's a good thing, but we ain't there yet. And so as long as we kind of keep an eye on these numbers ourselves, I think we can make better decisions. They gave us technology, man. They can't stop us now.
That's right. Bob, what's it look like on the street in terms of folks wearing the mask and social distancing and behaving appropriately? Are folks being consistent with that, or have you seen a change?
I haven't been out that much. I was out a couple of days ago. I think I think the bottom line is that people have been social distancing, but the warmer it gets,
Harder.
the more people are like less likely to do it. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just human nature, and that's what I've seen. And I think we were very fortunate with the weather over the last month because it's been kind of rainy and a little bit chilly. And so it's only the last few days we're getting these 65 and 70-degree days, which we knew are going to come, but we got a good run where it's like, well, it wasn't that nice out to begin with. I can, I'm not feeling like I need to go running outside, but days like today where it just feels sunny and people are stir crazy and people are bound to want to get out and then they're seeing pictures on social media of other people hanging out on the great lawn and so that's why I wanted to make sure that we just got back to okay, that's all good, but okay, going back to this zip code map, let's look at Central Park. Around the Central Park, other than 1029 area, you're not, we're not seeing a whole lot of, purple around Central Park. So those people who are coming from these zip codes, they most of them have not had the experience of extreme loss in their community. And so, yes, they're going to be hanging out, and yes, they're going to be playing frisbee and then doing things that we do in the spring. Because um, I'm, it's unfortunate, but people who haven't experienced the loss, they interpret this whole crisis differently, and we can see that in the other states where people are, it's a hoax, it's just like the flu, blah blah blah, and it's obviously not just like the flu. 60,000 people dead in the space of a couple months or less. It's not the flu, but there's just so much talk, misinformation, conspiracy theories going around that it's important for us to just kind of keep focus on what actually is, and we can sit around and debate the conspiracy theories after we're out of the crisis, but right now it's really important that we just use judgment and common sense so that we can get through the crisis. So,
That
so
was a
should I
guy
keep this
completely.
map?
That was
Is
a
there anything else you
network
guys want to
commitment.
see? There's a
Yeah,
there's
Bob,
another
can you
map
scroll
I
scroll
didn't
down so we
show.
can see Lower Manhattan? What the rest of the
Oh yeah,
on
sure.
that map?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Most of Manhattan is Lower Manhattan is they're fine.
Lower
As
East
you can
Side, every
see,
okay.
other than really way downtown, you see another purple area. But for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, below maybe this is 86th Street or something like that, they're all good.
Mm-hmm.
you know.
I suspect a
And
lot of that has to do with housing density. I know on the lower purple down in Lower Manhattan, there's a lot of public housing down there. As in 10029 on the Upper East Side, I think that's the most dense public housing area
right,
in Manhattan, with an incredible number of high-rise apartment buildings in that particular zip code.
yeah. And then I also think that there's a lot of people in those zip codes who had the wherewithal to just shelter in place, not working so-called essential workers. They're not
Mm-hmm.
forced to go out there for their jobs, and
Right.
they've been able to shelter in, order from Grubhub, watch Netflix, and everything's good. In our neighborhoods, we have a lot of people who are essential workers, who are,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're healthcare workers, whether they are delivery people, um, truck drivers, MTA, sanitation. All these people have, borne the brunt of this crisis. And I would say, we definitely have higher concentrations of those, folks in our neighborhood.
Yep.
And so you can also see Queens obviously has some hot spots, but it's not as concentrated. The Bronx really has, this virus has dominated the landscape here in the Bronx. Brooklyn has its hot spots as well, as we can see. But there are areas where they're not quite as dense. And then Staten Island has a couple of hotspot zip codes as well. But what's interesting is that the zip codes in Staten Island are much bigger. So even though these are hot spots, they're spread out over probably a bigger area. It's not, they don't have the same density, but I think it's interesting to see that Staten Island, has been hit hard in its own way. And I saw some other data that was the per capita numbers, and Staten Island was actually pretty high given their population density. So those are interesting things. I'm not sure what the factors are. I don't know too much about Staten Island, so can't give it more of a guess than that. But there's always interesting things to look at the actual numbers and data. And
well, the interesting thing is to me, Bob, is that even when you look at the ones in Manhattan, some of those zip codes are in blue, those are all high density areas as well. I mean, most of those are extremely large amount of huge apartment buildings and all that. And I think maybe your theory might have some validity that a lot of those people who live there are not service workers per se. A lot of them there are more of the high income. So I don't know if high density means as much as who's in the density.
Right. So,
and it may be a factor that people who are in those buildings aren't can, like you say, shelter in place and do their thing.
Yep.
But density, I mean, particularly Manhattan, the density is all over the place. I don't know about Staten Island, but when you look down on all of them, the island of Manhattan, when you get down to the whole areas, all those areas are high density pretty much. I mean, there's not even parks down there in those areas. So it's interesting the confluence of one area as opposed to that. The 120.0029, I know we saw that one too, but that's where Johnson is. That area is dead purple, and all of around it is not. I thought that was which was one of the leaders over there brought that up to us, and here it is. Here's the stark evidence that one little area is like one of the hottest spots going.
Yes. Yeah.
It's pretty. I don't know and I don't know if anybody has a reason for that.
Yeah.
Other than maybe comorbidity or something. I don't know.
Well, we'll probably learn more about pandemics. I mean, we're in the middle of the largest lab experiment ever about pandemics because how pandemics spread in New York is probably different than anywhere else because of the population density and the diversity of population density, and the traffic of international visitors creates a profile that is probably the perfect storm for a pandemic. It's probably amazing that we haven't had one before now. And a lot of the practices they use to try to stop pandemics, they're almost impossible once it gets what they call community spread, which means they can't track it anymore because it's gone in so many different directions. And I think that's the problem, is that Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, how do we even know that they have even measured these kinds of things before? Or maybe now they have been forced to do that because of just the sheer number of people and the worldwide signaling that there was a pandemic. Maybe if we didn't know that, if there wasn't some signaling from the World Health Organization that there is a pandemic, maybe we might not have known all this. And they would just said, hey, you would have known that people were dying.
Well, from all the stuff that I've read and watched, um, they've definitely developed these protocols over number of years, over the last 15 or 20 years. Remember, they had SARS, they had MERS, they had H1N1, they had Ebola. All of these pandemics have resulted in them developing these protocols. So all the social distancing, all these things, these were part of a playbook that has been developed over time. The problem that occurred here was that with the Trump administration, they didn't run the playbook the way they always do. Because number one, we wouldn't even be seeing Trump talking according to the playbook. They have a playbook that says basically during a pandemic, you want to have one trusted source who is preferably a doctor who is the main voice. So during Ebola, you didn't hear Obama coming out every day talking about this is what we're doing for Ebola. He would let his people talk, he would support them, but he let the CDC be the trusted voice. And so a lot of these things they have developed, but the kind of the playbook is aggressive contact tracing. So, you try to track down everybody who has it, and then you branch out and you see everybody who they came into contact, and you try to work your way back and hopefully eradicate it by just chasing the virus down. But when you hear the term community spread, that basically means, we don't know what's going on. And that means it's gone in so many different directions. It's literally impossible to trace. And that's what happens when if you have somebody who had the virus and they came in and they went to church and then they went to the bodega and then they went to play ball and they went dancing and, they went to a bar. You can go so many places in one day. Maybe they started out in the Bronx and then went downtown and then went out to Brooklyn. You're not going to trace, you can't backtrace all that. And so, so part of the problem is that the playbook at that point in time is like, okay, it's a broken play. We just got to scramble,
You got to make an adjustment, as they say.
Right. So, even in terms of getting it under control, you'll still hear that talk about contact tracing, but a lot of this is it's not as easy to do. Now, let's go back to New Rochelle, because we know that the New Rochelle got an outbreak before it hit the city. And it seemed like the initial outbreak, they were able to track that down through contact tracing and aggressively shutting things down in New Rochelle. Remember the synagogue that it hit. And so they used contact tracing to figure that out by working their way back from that initial attorney who came in. They shut down his schools. They went to his synagogue. There was an outbreak there. All of a sudden, the numbers started jumping there in New Rochelle. And then they kind of shut traffic down. And, it's easier to do that in a place with less density, and so that worked for a time. Although, as Stu said, now a month later, numbers are going up in New Rochelle because it's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, I got to go get the actual numbers, but I just got a quote from my wife yesterday. I think there are 1,200 cases just a couple of days ago, and a week earlier there were just 900 cases. So they're going up.
Wow, that's a 25% increase or something.
Yeah. I've got to get the hard numbers. I will have that on our next report. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I want to do the state. I want to do New Rochelle. The state has a map similar to the one we just looked at with the city. I wonder if they have some sort of, measuring measures that people can go and look at so that we can compare like what's going on. I wonder, do they have that? They must have that, right? Or is that open to the public even?
I'm going to look. I don't know. Do you know about?
I have no idea. I definitely haven't looked beyond the 5 boroughs, but I think we might find on westchester.gov, they might have some information like that. It's certainly reasonable to think that health departments are following parallel tracks, but they have different constituencies. So, it's probably worth a look on the Westchester website and see, if they have any of that data. Because no matter where you are, you still want, the more specifics. Okay, what's going on in our neighborhood? And so it certainly would be useful to also see that, especially as you said, Stu, it borders, what's going on here. So,
Right.
our map, ends at the Bronx line, but the virus obviously does not respect political boundaries, and so I'd be interested to see what's happening there at Mount Vernon, obviously New Rochelle, Yonkers, those areas, and see exactly where the virus is. So that definitely calls for us to look a little further on that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm probably going to jump off for a little bit. I've got to go do some things. I'm gonna try to get back on before you guys wrap up, but I wanted to make sure I shared that information. And appreciate you guys. Report has been very consistent and high quality information, and I wanted to basically contribute toward that.
Yeah, that was great, man. That map was pretty eye-opening,
Mm-hmm.
and it's some food for thought that allow, of course, to like kind of look at what's really going on. Too bad the federal government doesn't have some sort of thing like that, and some of these other states that are just saying, "Hey, we're just going to run out there." Too bad they don't have those kinds of messages.
Yeah, it really confounds me to see what's going on in these other states, but it's sad because people are paying the price. But I know I heard numbers jumped in Texas. They opened up. Numbers jumped in Georgia. They opened up. I know South Dakota, the numbers jumped. These are all states with the Republican governors who just went along with Trump, open the economy. And see, the problem with this whole thing, they're trying to minimize things and say it's like the flu and we overreacted. And the fact is that no matter how you slice it, they're acting like the death toll here is the same as what the death toll would have been had we not shut down. The fact is that if we're looking at 60,000 dead, if we hadn't shut down, we wouldn't be looking at 100,000 or 120,000. We would be looking at mid six figures, maybe more toward a million, because the way the virus works in viral mode, it spreads exponentially. And it was at a point where it was doubling every 3 days or so. And so if that's where it was, and with the 10-day lag, we didn't know, you don't know about it for 10 days. So it's allowed to go unchecked. So had we waited, say, another 10 days or another 15 days to shut things down, matter of fact, in New York, it would have been much worse. And this is where we dodged a bullet. People don't think about this. St. Patrick's Day.
I thought the governor made a good point a couple of days ago when he was talking about that very point, Bob. And he said, some folks will say, oh, the experts got it wrong because look, the numbers are so much lower. He said, no, the experts didn't get it wrong. We acted, and therefore we were able to curtail that exponential growth that you're talking about.
Right.
And that's why the numbers didn't hit 100,000 right away, because of what we did.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I think
great point.
I think that we missed the bullet by a couple of days, because think about what would have happened if we had a St. Patrick's Day parade.
Woo, man.
What?
Come on now.
Can't think about it. Can't think about it.
Yeah.
Listen, when those other states, I was going to say this just right quick, Bob. The thing that got everybody motivated here was the dying.
Right.
When those other states, when they're doing what they're doing, they're going to have the come to Jesus moment that all of us had when we saw the dying.
Right, exactly.
We see the dying, they will get some religion quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Exactly.
Those
'Cause that's
body
what happened
bags
here.
in the hallway in the hospital, man. When I saw
Right.
that, it was like
Right.
chilling.
And but
Stacking the bodies up in the hallway.
as
Yeah.
tragic as that is, we would have easily doubled, triple, quadrupled the number of hospitalized and dead, and New York would be looking like a zombie apocalypse
Hey.
here. And was that
Hey, Bob,
close?
Stu, think about this. Hey, Stu and Bob, think about this. Imagine, I'm gonna say it again. Imagine if the World Health Organization didn't put out the word that there was a worldwide pandemic, and we would have been listening to. So there were people on TV from Michigan who were actually saying that this was a hoax. They were mouthing what the president said. There were people who believe him, you know, for lack of a better term. So I'm not hating on them. I'm not hating on those people for that, but all I'm saying is that he got it wrong. And if we didn't hear from other sources, we might have had those numbers that you're talking about.
Right.
We were that close.
Right.
Scary stuff. I was gonna curse right, but I decided not to.
When Cuomo, I remember watching
no cursing window.
watching Cuomo's speech on Sunday, March 15th, which is 2 days before St. Patrick's Day. And at that point in time, he was saying there were like 3,600 ICU beds in the entire state, and they were 80% occupied. That's where we started out with. Right. And so that we would have easily been overwhelmed, and them putting the brakes on, as you saw, this, you know, the waves hit the shore around the beginning of April. So this was March 15th. 2 weeks later, even after they started the shutdown, it was when we saw the peak. So a lot of what fools people is the time horizon on this thing, because it spreads without us knowing. That's why it's so sneaky. It's going to get around, and by the time you recognize it's here, it's almost too late. And nobody knows, oh, it was just the flu, take some Theraflu. I talked to a doctor who had got COVID-19 last week, and when he first got it, he thought he had the flu. He took Tamiflu or Teraflu or whatever that flu medicine is, and then it didn't do anything, and so he got himself tested, found out he had it. He called up one of his buddies who's a pulmonary specialist and said, what do I do? Now, the interesting thing, there was a lot of early talk about hydrochloroquine. And first it was like, okay, Trump said it, so we immediately dismissed it. But I've heard a lot of evidence to suggest that hydrochloroquine is an effective treatment. It's not a cure, but in the cases that I've heard about, known about from people who I've talked to, and read a lot of doctors who are using it, that it actually has been effective. But, you know, Trump didn't know. And, you know, he moved on to other things very quickly because his attention span is short. But it's just interesting the level of information and misinformation that's out there. And we've got to really listen carefully and vet the sources. And, you know, when I talked to a doctor who said he used it on himself and then used it on his patients, and it's a brother. So, you know, because I've seen a couple of doctors online talking about it, but they were definitely, you know, they started talking to Trump stuff, and I'm like, okay, can I trust their information? I'm not sure, you know, but you know, the more I've looked into it, the more I've seen. And in Senegal, they used hydrochloroquine as well. And Senegal actually has one of the best records against COVID, you know, globally.
What about that test that they're using over there, Bob? Did you read about that? They have a very cheap test, and they also are making the ventilators with printers, with 3D
printers. I did see that. Yes. You know, necessity is the mother of invention, as they say. And so it's so interesting, the innovation that can be found other places. And it's also interesting what tests cost other than here. I mean, I recall somebody saying, hey, we got a home test and it only costs $119. Like, what? Are you kidding me? And from what I understand, in Germany, you can spend $180 and get 100 tests. So,
Mhm.
I mean, this country, we got elements that look at every crisis as an opportunity for profit,
Right.
and which is part of the problem. The media here also doesn't cover the success of the Cuban doctors and the Cuban. I think
Mhm.
it's is it interleukin? I think it's
Sure.
called interferon, maybe
Interferon.
interferon.
Mhm.
Yes,
Interferon.
right. The interferon, which has had its success worldwide. The Cuban doctors have been on a world tour. They're like rock stars. They've been to 23 different countries,
Mhm.
bringing their sunshine, good medicine, and interferon. And but
The guy,
we can't get it here.
Bob, no, there's a doctor who we interviewed a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Salim. He
Hmm.
sent me a text, and he's in his text, he sent how one can order the interferon. Now, I
Oh,
don't know what that
really?
means. Yeah, so I'll pass that around, in case
Yeah,
anybody is interested in that.
yeah.
But
Please
he
send that to
did,
me. Yeah.
yeah, he studied with them. And if you remember him, Stu, that's the guy that came on. He had all those viewers. He was
Mhm.
and he broke down. He gave a presentation and broke down all the stuff that the Korean guys. Excuse me, that the people
Cuban.
were doing from Cuba. Yeah, and then he was the first one that we heard talking about the Cuban people, by the way. And right after that interview, we started seeing that the Associated Press and all that started picking up, and the Yale Medical School, the newsletter, they all start picking up about these guys, and he was the
Hmm.
first person told us.
Hmm.
Just texted me a couple of days ago and said, I have the interferon and I can get it for people. So I don't know how
Right.
they dose it or whatever, but I'll pass that on so that, people want to
Yeah.
take advantage of
Because
it.
we've got to use our own common sense and resources, and sift through all the noise to what actually is and what works, and be dispassionate about it. I didn't want hydrochloroquine to work because it came from Trump, or at least I heard it first from Trump, you know,
Mhm.
and that was
First,
my I will freely
Yeah.
admit I had a bias, but I kept listening and listening and listening. It's like, you know, um, Curtis, my radio partner, his son got COVID-19, went in the hospital on a Saturday, got a hydrochloroquine treatment. He was out on the Sunday, and he was the first
Mhm.
how
person
old is
Wow.
he was the first person I heard. Now he's young, he's in his 30s. So,
he?
he had a
Understand.
better opportunity, health wise, had a better profile. But the point is, he was the first person I heard who went to the hospital and came back. you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
so at the time that was happening, obviously we were all, distraught. And, that's the real thing about this thing is that we have not just our intellectual capacity to try to understand it, but we're emotionally vested in the outcomes. This is not a political exercise. You've got all these Facebook PhDs and Facebook and Twitter physicians that all have an opinion that's based on something they saw to somebody, because anybody can go up on YouTube and give their theory of how the Illuminati are now rolling out their master plan, and one world government and the microchip. And honestly, I'm not saying these things. I'm not ruling out any conspiracy theories at this point in time. I have questions myself, but we don't have the luxury of wallowing in the minutia of a conspiracy theory that's usually propagated by somebody who's got no evidence, only using what is there to basically support the opinion that they developed over the last 30 years or whatever. So I'm not interested
Bob,
in that.
president, Bob?
Say that again.
Are you talking about the president?
I'm talking about everybody. You know, I've actually.
Including him. Oh, what?
Just lost Bob's audio.
Yeah, Bob must have hit his button. He must have, you know, he don't want us to hear who he's
Bob,
talking
we can't
about.
hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we hear you now.
Okay. So I feel that if Trump was involved in a conspiracy around this vaccine, he would be responding much differently. It was clear that he was caught unawares because he really didn't respond to this until the stock market crash, you know, which is a metric for him. You know, all other metrics, he didn't care about people dying. He'll lie about that, but he can't lie about the stock market crashing and Dow Jones, and that's what he cares about. So to me, that suggests that his culpability is based on negligence, not criminal intent in this regard. Notice I say in this regard.
Right, I hear you.
I think that his criminal intent is much more focused on oil-based things and focused on his hotels, and it's clear that he's got his hand in a lot of pockets. But I think my own feeling is that there are some things that have been pushed by the pharmaceutical industry because a vaccine is, potentially a multi-billion-dollar or a trillion-dollar event. But the fact is, here are the facts. The facts is that we didn't have a vaccine for MERS, for SARS, for H1N1, for Ebola, or for HIV. Nobody haven't been any vaccines for any of those viruses. So why is everyone acting like a vaccine for this virus is just around the corner when the last 5 or 6 big viruses that have wreaked havoc on the world, they weren't able to do anything with those. So that's I want to start there.
I think they're prepping for a liquidity event there, Bob.
I definitely think that they're either opportunistic or they're executing a game plan. So the big question, was this a manufactured virus? A, was it manufactured? B, was it released on purpose or did it accidentally escape? Those are questions where we don't yet have enough answers to. But there are some concerns around the level 4 lab that was in Wuhan. I mean, I think this is where conspiracy theories propagate, because there's a simple coincidence that the city where it first emanated from is the area where there's a level 4 lab. There are only a handful of these labs on the entire planet. So if a virus emanates from the city where one exists, there is a natural inclination to say, well, did it obviously escape from the place where they're keeping them? No, it was some bats in the seafood market. Okay.
I'm more interested in the idea that how they respond and how they're making the adjustments to what it is, as opposed to where it came from. I'm just talking about for me personally, because we've had viruses throughout the course of the history of mankind.
Right.
So I'm more concerned about what adjustments did they make, how did they make those adjustments, and of course, if they have reacted in any way that makes any sense. I've seen the people in Michigan get up and say that it's a hoax and that they're putting chips. I heard actual people saying that. I've seen cars going by.
Well, but now here's where the waters get muddied, because all right, so Bill Gates has obviously had he's jumped into the vaccine industry like that was his main calling, and he funds it. He works hand in hand with the WHO, you know, he's made many statements that include not only about the importance of vaccines and finding a vaccine, but he's also made statements about depopulation, which is, that's not a good combination. Somebody talking about vaccinate the world, and also, by the way, we need less people in the world. So these are the statements that form a lot of the basis for things that people are calling conspiracy theories. And some people just take it and go running with it. And other people, like myself, just go, okay, it's a puzzle piece. I'm not saying we have the whole picture, but one can understand where fear and trepidation comes from these things. And
Sure.
so when you start to connect the dots, when you see relationships between Fauci and Gates, when you see relationship between Fauci and pharmaceuticals like Merck, um, when you, here's where it gets really interesting. So have you heard of what they call gain of function research?
No, I have not.
Okay, so the idea is, okay, well, we'll take these viruses and we'll engineer them to make them more efficient in order that we can study it and protect it in case the virus gets more efficient. So there's obviously a real logical flaw in that thinking, that if you're actually going to create a more efficient virus, the now more efficient virus exists. So the threat that you're looking to protect, you've actually created. I mean, I think this was a subject of the Mission Impossible 2, to be honest with you. Yeah, so this type of research, there was an outcry in the virology community, and they were supposed to have shut it down, but supposedly they were doing this type of gain of function research also in the Wuhan lab. So, you know, once you start reading and uncovering some of the stuff, it's like, wow, it kind of smells conspiracy-ish to me. You know,
Mhm.
and whether it was an accident or an actual release is irrelevant. The fact is, it was probably irresponsible to do this type of research. So there's some more stuff that I've read on this stuff. I'm gonna try to dig some of the stuff over and send it to you guys and have get your thoughts on it, because again, I try to read and watch this stuff that's not the tin hat foil hat stuff that people are talking, and they're scientists and they're breaking things down that admittedly are usually maybe above my head, but if I can follow along with it and say, all right, that kind of makes sense, and
Mhm.
go,
Right.
So, you know, it's some of the reason why we have people all across the spectrum, because there are enough puzzle pieces out there, you know, that it's a conspiracy theorist, wet dream, really. So, you know, we have to look at some of these things, but obviously we go back to the fundamentals, which is that we've got to first deal with what our crisis is about. But I've been looking at a lot of these things, and it's like, something went wrong somewhere. And there's just a lot of pieces that don't add up, and it's not just Trump and the federal response. We can pretty much trace that. We know that Obama left a pretty robust pandemic response system in place. We know that Trump dismantled it, because it had Obama's name on it. He dismantled everything that had Obama's name on it. So that's according to pattern. We can understand that. The part I don't understand is, why was our health system so unprepared, especially when they did pandemic exercises? So there was an exercise called Event 201. You can go on YouTube and you can actually watch all of the videos from this event. And it was a tabletop exercise like the ones that we've done locally, except it was hosted by the Bloomberg School of Public Health, John Hopkins, in conjunction with the WHO and the Gates Foundation. So we have these three players all at the table. Now you can go and watch the video if you go to YouTube and search on Event 201. You will see the actual video. So you can watch and you'll see at the table, you see a representative of the US CDC, representative of China CDC, United Nations representative, and private sector representatives. And they go through an exercise about a coronavirus that didn't come from China. In this exercise, it came from South America. And it didn't come from bats, it came from pigs. But other than that, everything that we experienced, they went through in the exercise. Shutdown of travel, crash of the financial markets, shortage of PPE and medical supplies. So they went through it in their exercise and trained for it. And then a few months later, when it happened, why wasn't private medical industry more prepared? Why wasn't New York City more prepared? These are questions that I think going forward, we need to look at and answer.
Yeah.
So,
short answer, I would say, Bob, because of the capitalistic underpinnings of the system and how it works.
Yeah.
But certainly all that has been exposed. And I've at least been gratified to see that our governor here in New York State has recognized the flaws in the hospital system statewide, and is proposing some systemic changes going forward post-pandemic. So that's been one positive outcome I've seen.
Yep. So guys, I'm gonna jump off now. I've got to I gotta run, but always a pleasure with you guys. I'll be back again next Monday.
Thank you, Bob. Good report. I'm going to post that map on the WHCREBT.org website.
Okay,
it's
great.
a valuable resource. Thank you for that.
Great. Okay. All right, guys.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
And Mr. Dougie, I've got to report out also. I got to go do my hospital run.
Okay, Stu, it's always a pleasure, man. Coordinate everything.
Yeah, I'll check back with you on my return. Okay. Thanks.
Tune in, you might just learn something. Send it down. Well, we'll send that. Okay, here we go.